Hello, college football fans across the nation. Welcome back to Urban's Take. This is the second take of Urban's Take, and featuring Urban Meyer, three-time national championship winner, 2 at Florida, 1 at Ohio State. Urban, let's get going, right?
Yeah, don't forget with Tim May.
Yeah, well, yeah. Most people would like to probably forget it, but hey, enjoy these moments, man. I enjoy talking football with you. Always have. Those few little times there in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, we could talk about a few things other than what was going on in life, you know what I mean? But bottom line is you're going to be in West Lafayette on Thursday night when people may be tuning into this too for big noon or big Fox Big Noon and football. And I'm just wondering, are you fired up about getting back into the swing of things in college football?
I am, and more importantly, I love our team. I mean, we learned from the Jimmy Johnson and Terry Bradshaw, that crew, the one thing they kept telling us is it's your team. And we become extremely close. Reggie, Matt, Brady, and Rob Stone. And it's a great company, great group, and they celebrate the game of football.
Hey, and, obviously that's going to be Penn State at Purdue, a treacherous opener, I think, for Penn State. I think you would agree with that. I think the last time you went to Purdue with a football team, like I just joked with you a minute ago before we started, I think Purdue just scored another touchdown. That was a devastating loss. It kept Ohio State out of a college football playoff berth that year. And so you know how things can turn on you in a heartbeat at Ross-Ade Stadium, right?
Oh, I sure do. And I think that coach is a great coach. I think he's a tough guy. They play tough. The environment there is going to be electric. Ohio State has a tendency to bring out the best in people, and I think Penn State will as too. That's going to be a tough environment. And they got their quarterback back. They have something to watch, Tim. They have 2 Iowa transfer receivers that I've been watching a little bit.
Yeah.
One was a special teams all-conference player. And if they can, because they're a little short, they have 2 good receivers, but he throws a darn ball almost every time, and he does a really good job.
Yeah.
But if those 2 players at Iowa transfers contribute, Purdue's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I think Jeff Brom goes into every game with a great design, but the idea is to get it executed, right? And that quarterback's back. They feel pretty good about that. Penn State's got his quarterback back in Sean Clifford. So some veteran QBs there, right?
Yeah, Sean Clifford got hurt last year. And when he got hurt, his production went way down. They were 5-0 at one point, ranked in the top 5 in America, and then they kind of fell apart. So this is a big year for Penn State, Coach Franklin. They're 11-11 in the last 22 games. Think about that for a minute. Yeah. 11-11.
Yeah.
But he's done a really good job. Before that, they had some. They won the Big Ten championship and whatever that was at 16, I believe.
Yeah.
And Penn State's an elite place, not a good place. That's a top 10 place.
Well, let's get to the main event as far as you and I are concerned. I cover Ohio State football since 1984. You coached at Ohio State for 7 years, won a national championship. But before you got into head coaching, your last extended assistant gig was at Notre Dame for what was that, 5 seasons, 96 through 2000, before you were named the head coach at Bowling Green. And dude, you got a stake in both of these programs, Notre Dame and Ohio State on September the 3rd, prime time. I mean, are you already getting goosebumps about this game?
Well, I just keep thinking about the coaches. Here's Ryan Day that gets to stand on the sideline across from the most tradition-rich program in, college football history, Notre Dame. You got Marcus Freeman, 36 years old, first coaching job. He goes in a bowl game and loses, and then now he's got to go to the horseshoe.
Yeah.
And he's a Buckeye. He's a great coach. He's got a lot of momentum in recruiting right now. The players want to play for him. But that's a tough one to step into with a new quarterback. The quarterback position is, it's nothing new, but that's the most intriguing position in all of the sport. And the Buckeyes got arguably the best, or one of the top 2 in the country. And Notre Dame's got a new player coming right out of the chute, highly recruited. I watched him, not much to look at. I think there was 50 passes the entire year last year. So
right.
His first snap in that 110,000 against a Jim Knowles defense, which I understand, Tim, he's all over the place. I went back and watched Oklahoma State. I didn't see as much of that, but the reports out of Ohio State are that there's a lot of different looks he throws at you.
Yeah. Let me ask you, I'm going to get into that in a minute, but I'll just ask you right now, what some people are concerned. I mean, Jim Knowles, he as coach speak goes, he could be like backtracking here a little bit right now and just saying, hey, boy, we've put in about 75% of this defense. We feel really good about it, but, we got to wait and see. He is confident. He is fired up about where this defense has come in 8 months. As he said, like I said, he used that 75% figure, but that's a lot of defense to have installed, which is a pretty new look for these guys. But he's really been taken by how these Ohio State athletes have grasped it, and number two, how they've executed it in practice against, like you said, may be the best offense in the country this year. That remains to be seen. Ohio State's offense led by C.J. Stroud. But do you read the tea leaves there when a coach is pretty confident about what he's going to put on the field? Is that a sign of confidence for the team? I mean, how do you read that?
Well, I read it as the most undervalued positions of every coaching staff are those assistants.
Yeah.
And Jim Knowles is a defense coordinator. If he's got those 4 or 5 assistants, if they're not, I've experienced that through our career, is that when I've had the best assistant coaches, it's hard to beat, hard to lose. Especially if Ohio State's going to have great players. If he can have all the alignment of those assistant coaches, which it sounds like he does,
yeah,
that's a hard team to beat. It's when there's the dysfunction that happens or what goes on in the meeting room, because the defensive coordinator presents the plan to the assistant coaches, presents the plan to the team. Then I used to call power of the unit. Then they separate, and they go meet for an hour and a half, and they install. And during the week, during the day of practice, Jim Knowles is walking around. He's not, he's coaching, but he's also overseeing. So yeah. I'm fired up when I hear him talk like that, because that means he's got a brilliant group of assistant coaches that he feels strong about. Not everything's on the players, absolutely, but Ohio State's got great players,
yeah,
and they're going to have great players next year. Guess what they're going to have the year after? Great players.
Yeah,
it's those assistant coaches, and from everything I'm hearing, is they got a very strong staff.
Yeah. I was going to say, you went through that tumult, though, at Ohio State, in 2013, 12 and 13, defensively, it just wasn't getting done to your liking one way or the other. And you upset that staff a pretty good bit. Next thing you know, you win a national championship in 2014. Ohio State had that same thing going on last year. Reminded me of 2018 a little bit when things kind of ran out of staff, gassed, and Jeff Hafley came on. Instant fix, with on Ryan Day's first staff there. But these were bold moves by Ryan Day after the season to go out and hire 3 new defensive coaches, wasn't it? Including a guy that worked for you at Jacksonville, Tim Walton, former Buckeye, and then Perry Eliano was on that team, that defensive backfield coach that made the college football playoff last year for University of Cincinnati. I mean, sometimes you just got to make those bold sweeps, right?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because people are involved, and you're at Ohio State. We're 12-2 Rose Bowl champions. Not good enough. Think about that.
Yeah. And
but that's I used to tell our staff and our players, that's life in the big city. You don't have to be here.
Yeah.
It's tough. But yeah, it looks to me like he made the right moves. Obviously, to be determined. But Ryan Day is a great leader. Ryan Day is elite. That's the term I used when I talk about him, because first of all, I love him. He's a great guy, great friend. But he also, just the way he manages that organization, he's elite offensive pass play caller, but he also showed his ability now to make some changes on the staff that he felt was necessary, and that's part of the business.
Yeah, you want to be close to your coaches, but you can't be bestest buddies, because you might have to do exactly what he did, right? I mean, that's that fine line you guys walk, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awful. I really only fired 1 or 2 guys. I always felt like loyalty got in the way, or I can work with this, and we had a lot of success. I've had you work with coaches. There was the media, and everybody wanted me to get rid of the D coordinator. His name was Luke Fickell years ago, and I didn't do it. And he's one of the best I've ever been around. So it's a fine line, and only, as Ryan will tell you, as I can tell you, that seat is as lonely as a seat as you can have.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants something from you and that's why it's very important to have a guy on the staff, or a mentor, or a guy that you can call and run things by.
Hey, let's briefly touch on something that's always intrigued me about you and your career. 2004, you had that team at Utah, which I believe should have gotten to play for the national championship. It should have beaten Cincinnati to the punch of being an outsider looking in, you know what I mean? But finally getting that big shot among the Power 5 group. But you got offered that job at Florida late in that season, or not that late, actually. I think they fired Ron Zook earlier in the year, but then Notre Dame came calling a little bit after that. And, I always thought there were like two or three teams you would probably like to coach at one point in your career. One of them was Notre Dame. I might've been wrong about that, but the bottom line was, yeah, you almost had to make a choice there. The way it was presented to me, you go with Florida, win 2 national championships, then end up at Ohio State. But my point is, do you remember those days? What was it like to be sort of chased like that? And as you look back on it, any second thoughts about maybe not jumping on that Notre Dame gig when you had that maybe shot?
Yeah, it was. They're both contracts sitting right there, and my love and respect for Notre Dame is at the time almost unmatched. I mean, you had Ohio State. It's interesting if you go back and look at my contract. I had 3 outs, and it was Ohio State, Notre Dame, and the Wolverines. Believe it or not,
Really?
the respect I have. Yeah, Bo Schembechler, and I grew up. I thought those are the 3 best programs in America. If you ever get a chance to coach at any of those 3, take it, because you can win a national title, and it's the cultures that you look for. But I just, Shelley was very involved. My family was very involved. The recruiting, you don't have time to build programs anymore. The recruiting, Ron Zook is a great coach and a great recruiter. And I studied the roster, and I thought, this is a chance to go within your footprint. The other thing, I had young children, and recruiting at Notre Dame, you're in San Diego, New York, New Jersey, Fort Lauderdale, Seattle, Washington, Denver. In Florida, you're in Florida.
Yeah.
And you might stretch your wings and go to Georgia. So I had private planes at my disposal. I could still be at my kids' events. And at Notre Dame, I did some homework on that as well. You're across that, you're constantly on a plane.
Yeah.
And, I do, at sometimes, I see the Fighting Irish, and, I'm Irish Catholic, and I watch them and think, man, but I'm glad I did what I did.
Hey, we talked about this last week, but just one more quick quib from you. Does Notre Dame need to eventually get into the Big Ten? And what is your take? I mean, if the Big Ten stays with a 9-game schedule and it includes USC and UCLA, you could see another traditional rivalry go out the window, Notre Dame and USC. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, depending on what do you think?
I don't know, Tim. I mean, if someone told you, hey, by the way, Texas won't play Texas A&M again.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? And I don't know. Money drives this whole thing. Notre Dame is very unique. I understand they're going to get a really good TV contract, I'm hearing. I think a lot of it depends on this new coach and the success. If they're having great success, like Brian Kelly did, certainly the last half of his career there, no, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. If they start to struggle, I think that's when the higher ups and everybody got to evaluate what's best.
Who's sleeping better this week? And you touched on it a minute ago, Ryan Day with a Heisman finalist quarterback back in the saddle, or like you said, Marcus Freeman with a brand new starting quarterback. Who's getting an extra 2 or 3 minutes sleep this week before this game kicks off?
Neither. They're a mess right now. They're both a train wreck. They're both. I know one of them very well. The other one I've met many times, and he's great, Marcus Freeman. But I mean, this is big, Tim. My gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State's got Notre Dame. I want to say the last 5 or 6 times they played. When I coached against Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, I mean, it's overwhelming because that's historic. Those are, those games you never forget. I was coaching for Notre Dame for Lou Holtz in '96 when the Buckeyes came and had that great team.
Yes.
They beat us. They beat Notre Dame in '95 and '96, and that's bigger than life, that game.
Yeah. By the way, they had an interview tent that year because they were refurbishing, as you know, the Notre Dame Stadium. They had the upper deck, new part almost finished, but it wasn't open. You remember that game? The crowd was like in the lower bowl there, the original bowl. But man, I'll never forget Lou Holtz walked by me going into the interview room, and he had that neck brace on because he'd had that neck problem. But I'm telling you, Urban, this is post game. It looked like somebody had pulled the blood out of his body. He was ashen. I mean, that's what these games do to coaches, right? I mean, it's dog eat dog at this moment.
Yeah, we had a meeting after the game, and it was, I was still relatively young coach, and really the first time on that kind of stage. And I saw the same thing you saw, and I was like, oh, which I had expected.
Yeah.
I mean, you lost to Ohio State, and Notre Dame you can't lose, by the way, and Ohio State you can't lose.
Yeah.
Is what it is, though.
It is what it is. What impresses you about each team, and and give me a synopsis, just a quick little take on where you think there are question marks on each team, or just one question mark on each team. I'm talking about Notre Dame and Ohio State.
Ohio State is unprecedented what they've done at Brian Hartline, Corey Dennis, Ryan Day with the offensive recruiting they've done. It's hard to imagine they lose 3 first-rounders: Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson. And from my understanding, the 2 they have coming back with some others right behind them are as good or better.
Yeah.
Think about what I just said.
Yeah.
You lose 3 first-rounders. And then the quarterback, you go from Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields to CJ, and then behind them, they really like these quarterbacks. So at Ohio State, what I'm hearing, depth in the offensive line is a concern, but they feel pretty good about their team. They just got to stay healthy, get them to the dance. Yeah. Notre Dame's best players are tight end. They have a new quarterback that's going to go into a tough environment. So there's a lot of unknowns there, but their best player, he's an NFL player. Yeah. They're tight end. Their defense is very good. But the weakness, I would say, the quarterback taking those first snaps at Ohio State.
Dude, let's just talk about it. I mean, that game it was on Fox. I mean, Nebraska, Northwestern, and Dublin, Ireland. And you and I were talking before the show, and does there come a moment in a game where a head coach sometimes maybe steps on his foot a little bit? I mean, from a risk standpoint, I mean, Nebraska had gone up by 11 points. You're on the road in 5 time zones away, et cetera. Why call an onside kick? And just kind of give people like a little insight on kind of what goes through a head coach's mind sometimes. You're already up 11. You've got Northwestern on the ropes, in my opinion. Defensively, you're playing them extremely well. Why take that extra risk to possibly put your defense in jeopardy? Because from that moment on, when Northwestern recovered the onside kick, it was a different ball game in Northwestern's favor.
Yeah, first of all, Scott Frost, I mean, he's struggling, but has a track record he took over a program that was really struggling, took them, in their opinions, to a national championship at Central Florida. I've known him a long time. He's a national champion as a player. I mean, yeah. The guy's a tough guy. I sat in meetings with him. He's a very smart guy. So, I've never been one of those guys that question head coach because I've sat there. So think about this, Tim, and I had it on my game plan sheet every week for my entire career. And I would always, there's 3 risks you take. One is to win a game. Yeah. Okay. And so to win a game is number 1. And that was, say, for example, the 2016 double overtime where we had the ball 4th and that far. Yeah. That's a risk, but that's to win a game. Take that risk. Okay. If it's educated and if it's well thought out. Number 2 is to get back in a game. And I'm going to use the same game. We were backed up and I ran a fake punt. It didn't work. It did not work. But to get back in a game, you also look on that sheet. My eyes would go right to it. Are we to win the game? And I have my 4th down calls. You have your last play of the game calls, or you have your deceptives or trick plays right there in front of you. To get back in a game is very similar to what we just discussed. And then the final column. So first column is to win a game. Second column is get back in a game. And third one is we used to call it checkmate. It's in our player's manual and coach's manual. Every summer I would cover it with our team and say we are aggressive. There's going to be times where I'm going to, imagine a fist fight in a prize fight, and you got a guy against the ropes. You got that one last swing. Take the swing. And Scott Frost, the program's struggling. They're single score games they're not very good at. He saw an opportunity from video, and maybe I think I heard him say that earlier in the game. He saw it, and it wasn't executed. Yeah. Let's stop there, though. Defense, go out and stop them then. Yeah. Or offense, you got 3 and out, I think, 3 times after that. So, yes, you're the head coach. You get blamed for everything. That's part of the job. But your staff's got to pick you up, and your players, I know Scott Frost probably said this to his team. There's going to be times throughout the year I'm going to take a checkmate swing. That's part of what we do. Yeah. Help me out, get us back. And I think about in the 16, I know I'm going on here, but 16, in the double overtime, we couldn't move the ball. We couldn't get out of our own end zone. And I ran that fake punt. Our defense I think we gave up a score, but after that, they held them to nothing.
That's right.
So the defense helped the head coach who made it. Obviously, the decision didn't work. I wouldn't say it's a bad decision. It was, you're trying to get back in that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is like last year, Ohio State, everybody's down the defense, and rightly so. I mean, Ohio State got shoved around in a couple, 3 games last year, especially even through the first half of Utah. The 3 probably toughest opponents they played: Oregon, Michigan, and Utah. But what I came back with in those losses to Oregon and Michigan, okay, your defense is getting shoved around, but when you get the ball, it's kind of like a tennis match. When you've got serve, hold serve, and the offense didn't get it done that day, and that was what, a team that led the nation in total offense and in scoring didn't come close to those numbers in those 2 games, the 2 losses. And it is a team game, right? In that respect, that's kind of what you're alluding to.
Yeah, so the Belichick has it all over his facility. We did too. Do your job.
Yeah.
If the head coach makes a decision, that's his to make. Help him out. If the offense coordinator makes a decision to do a trick play or to do something, it doesn't work, help them out.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Just simply do your job. If Nebraska would have came back and stopped Northwestern to a field goal, and then if they would have got some momentum on offense, like they were playing well on offense, and it all went dry, went sideways fast. So does he deserve criticism? Sure. But football is the greatest team sport of all. Do I think it was the wrong call? I don't know that. I think that's his call, but I think it was executed poorly, and the offense and defense kind of gave up some yardage on defense, and offense couldn't move the ball.
Oh yeah, Northwestern lined up and ran it down their throat. Basically running the ball, which is tough. Hey, real quick, before we get done here, Ohio State Notre Dame isn't the only kind of like semi-premier. It is the premier game. Imagine this, Urban. First time Ohio State has opened a game, opened a season where both teams are in the top 5. That's pretty impressive, isn't it?
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard to believe. But you've got a couple other games. Cincinnati going to Arkansas. Luke Fickell trying to regain that magic from a year ago and stuff. You lose your quarterback, you lose quite a few guys on defense, et cetera. And then you've got Oregon and Georgia. I think Oregon and Georgia playing in a neutral site, Atlanta. What do you see? But those 2 games, what intrigues you, especially UC at Arkansas? You've got a little take there from a Cincinnati standpoint.
I went down to see Coach Fickell asked me to come down, and I went there, and I saw Kerry Combs, and obviously my son's there, so I watched practice. He's a heck of a coach and great staff, and Kerry Combs is the same Kerry Combs he was 10 years ago. So they did lose. They lost their quarterback. They lost those 2 high draft pick corners, but they still look very good to me. They look long, athletic, well-coached team. They feel, that they're going to be right in the middle of the city in Arkansas. I don't know enough about Arkansas. I have not really studied them. I've studied UC, and obviously I'm pulling for them hard. Yeah. And then Georgia, Oregon. Oregon's got a new coach. Cristobal left. And that's, I can't imagine, Oregon travels well, but that's going to be all red and black in that stadium. And that's going to be a tough go. But the one thing we're also going to talk about on Big Noon at some point, I'm not sure this week, but how hard it is to repeat. Yeah. You look at every team we had that won the national title, the next year was really hard to coach.
Yeah.
And, in 15, we had a maybe better team than 14.
Yes.
And they're great players, great kids, but the staff's different. The head coach is different. Everything's different when you win a national title. That's why, Nick Saban, it's amazing how consistent he stays, but it's really difficult to repeat. So I'm anxious to watch how Georgia, comes back after becoming the champion.
Yeah, it's amazing to me because the repeat thing, you just brought it up. 68, Ohio State had a brand new starting quarterback in Rex Kern, won a national championship. Then really didn't get it done the next 2 years. They won somebody's national title, I think in 1970, but it wasn't one of the 2 wire services. 2002, Craig Krenzel, first year starting quarterback. Yeah, he started the Michigan game the year before, but now it was his team and stuff. They get it done. 2003, a better team, but minus Maurice Clarett. They didn't get it done. 2014, as you just pointed out, you only had 1 new starting quarterback that year after Braxton Miller went down with J.T. Barrett. You ended up with Cardale Jones in the playoffs in the postseason, and you still got it done. But then in 15, couldn't just, one loss just kind of ruined it. But, why do you think that is in college football, Urban?
Well, it's not. Joe Madden was the coach of the Cubs in 2016. They won the World Series, and I was a very good friend. And every year I'd go visit with him. I'd take my kids to Wrigley Field, and we'd sit and talk. And he actually did a study, and it's under 10%. In the major sports, whether it be, I can't remember the sports he did, but it was probably football, baseball, basketball, hockey. And the top professional sports, top college sports. When you win a national title, regardless of who you have coming back, the team dynamic changes. Your mentality changes. Lou Holtz used to say the climb is nothing but energy, inspiration, togetherness. But once you're on top, maintenance is awful. The climb is incredible.
Yeah.
Maintenance is, you're just, all targets are on your back. It seems like you can do nothing good enough. Remember what happened in what was it, 15? We're winning every game, but we're not winning by enough.
Yeah.
And Cardell Jones has never lost a game as a starter at Ohio State. And he just, we made a change, and it was tough. It was not the same enjoyment. Of 14, I mean, you could walk on water those last 3 games, and just the climb to the top was so much fun. And 15, it was tough.
Yeah. I always like to say about bull riding, even if you ride the bull to the 8-second horn, you still got to get off that damn thing. You know what I mean? And by the way, they're honoring the 2002 national championship team at Ohio State this Saturday. Jim Trussell had him on my podcast this week and stuff. And it's just amazing. Like you just pointed out, even with you guys in 2006 at Florida, how the dominoes just fell for you correctly, and the close games that 2002 Ohio State team won. It was crazy. Had to go to overtime at Illinois, the first overtime game in Ohio State history. Then they beat the team up north, as you call them, Michigan, and then come back and double overtime against Miami to get it done. It's not an easy climb to get there, but boy, just as you look back on it, sometimes there's just magic in the air, right?
Yeah, and to see Jim Trussell be able to come back again, and I remember he was there in 2012 at their rivalry game. So it's just great to see it. That's a 2002. They'll go down in history. That was I remember watching it. Obviously I was from afar, but I've always been a Buckeye. Yeah. And I was cheering like crazy for them. And to see those guys come back, wish them well. And that's going to be a great moment for them.
Hey, yeah. Last question. Who do you like Saturday, Ohio State, Notre Dame? I mean, can you make a pick? Do you feel good about making a pick? But it just looks like, obviously Ohio State, as we record this, is a 17.5 point favorite, which is pretty overwhelming. That's 3 scores. I mean, do you think that's legit in this game?
I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be right around that number. I think Ohio State will win the game. You just can't. The skill level right now on the offensive skill, it's going to be hard to stop them. But I'm really excited to see this defense. Everything I'm hearing out of training camp and even spring practice, the installation, and the way the players, you mentioned it earlier, the way they are absorbing what Jim Knowles is teaching them has been, from everything I hear, it's been outstanding. But once again, give credit to the players, but also give credit to the assistant coaches on defense.
Isn't that amazing? We're both sitting here going, the offense you think is going to be pretty good, but I can't remember the last time Ohio State fans were so excited about seeing a defense play, right? I mean, it's kind of like those mid-'70s teams when they kind of rule the earth. Are they going to be that level, right?
Well, 14, if you remember, 13, we struggled on defense.
Oh, yeah.
A guy named Chris Ash came in and kind of stirred the pot a little bit on defense, and he had, a bunch of great coaches. Larry Johnson, I think that was his second year.
No, it was his first year. Yeah, I think it was his first year. Yeah. You hired him away from because Vrabel left to go. Yeah.
That's right. So we hired 2 new coaches, and they came in and did a magical job.
Yeah. And of course, it helps when you got Joey Bosa coming off the edge. Things like that, right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the second take of Urban's take. Urban, thanks for joining me here again, man. And I'm looking forward to us kind of chopping up the Ohio State Notre Dame game next week. But then looking forward, Alabama at Texas. You talk about a big noon kickoff. Oh, my goodness, right?
We'll be there and ready to go. And Tim, I love doing this. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week, ladies and gentlemen, and tell your friends.